The matte black box had no label, no return address, just smooth cardboard that probably cost more than most people's monthly subscriptions. I stood in my kitchen, holding it like it might detonate, which, in a way, it was about to. Allison's Volvo had just backed out of the driveway. She'd forgotten her yoga bag again. Third time this month. Creatures of habit. All of us. She'd realize it by the time she hit the stoplight at Millbrook Road, curse under her breath the way she always did, and loop back. 4 minutes. Maybe 5 if she caught the light. I had 4 minutes to understand why my wife had been hiding subscription boxes in the back of our closet for months. I'd noticed them 2 weeks ago. Found the first one when I was looking for my winter coat. Black box, shoved behind her summer dresses, tissue paper poking out. I'd almost opened it then, but something stopped me. Some instinct. I'd put it back and pretended I hadn't seen it. But I'd started paying attention after that. Watching. Noticing. The packages that arrived when I was at work. The way she always got to the mail first. The trash bags that went out before I could see what was in them. This morning she'd been careless. Left this box on the passenger seat of her car, probably planning to hide it after yoga. But she'd forgotten the yoga bag, and when she ran back inside to grab it, she'd left the car unlocked. The tissue paper inside was the color of champagne. Underneath it, La Perla lingerie. Black. Lace. The kind of thing she hadn't worn for me in years. Not since before we got married, back when we were still trying to impress each other. Tucked into the delicate fabric was a handwritten note on cream-colored cardstock. For Thursday. Can't wait. D. My hands didn't shake. I want to be clear about that. 11 years of marriage, and my hands were steady as a surgeon's. Maybe that should have told me something about the state of things between us. Maybe it told me something about myself I wasn't ready to examine. The receipt was folded beneath the tissue paper. Lux Intimate, a subscription service. Active since January. This was September. 8 months. Someone with the initial D had been dressing my wife for 8 months. I photographed everything. The box, the lingerie, the note, the receipt. Each item from multiple angles, making sure the timestamps would be visible in the metadata. I even photographed the way the tissue paper was folded, the exact position of the note within the folds. Old habits. I spent 6 years in Army intelligence before going private sector. Deployed twice to places I still can't talk about. Spent years learning how people conceal information and how to find it anyway. When I transitioned to corporate cybersecurity, those skills translated perfectly. I protect secrets for a living now. I know how people hide things. I never expected to use those skills on my own wife. I put everything back exactly as I'd found it, tucking the tissue paper corners the same way they'd been tucked before, positioning the note at the same angle. If she checked, if she was paranoid enough to notice, it would look untouched. The garage door rumbled open. I was drinking coffee at the counter when she walked in, scrolling through my phone like I'd been there for hours. "Forgot something," she said, slightly breathless. Her cheeks were flushed. Yoga flush, I might have thought once. Now I noticed the way her eyes didn't quite meet mine. Happens to the best of us. She grabbed the bag from the mudroom, gave me a wave that was more habit than affection, and disappeared again. The Volvo's engine faded down the street. I took another sip of coffee. It had gone cold, but I drank it anyway. My wife didn't know it yet, but I had just become the most dangerous person in her life. That night, Allison modeled lingerie for me. Not the La Perla from the box. Something else. Something she claimed was from a Nordstrom sale. She stood in the doorway of our bathroom, backlit, doing that little pose she used to do when we were dating. Hip cocked, smile playing at her lips. "What do you think?" "You look amazing," I said. And she did. 36 years old, and Allison still turned heads. Pharmaceutical sales kept her in shape. All that walking through hospital corridors, All those client dinners where she barely touched her food. Her auburn hair fell past her shoulders, and her green eyes had that sparkle that used to make my heart race. Just amazing, she pouted. I was hoping for spectacular, at least. Spectacular, I amended. Come here. She crossed the room and straddled my lap, wrapping her arms around my neck. Up close, I could smell her perfume, the new one she'd started wearing a few months ago. Not the one I'd bought her for Christmas. Something different. Something I didn't recognize. We made love that night. At least, that's what she would have called it. I performed. That's the only word for it. I hit all the right marks, said all the right things, and felt absolutely nothing except a cold, clinical detachment, like I was watching the whole thing from outside my own body. When it was over, she curled against me, her head on my chest. That was nice, she murmured. Mm-hmm. We should do this more often. I feel like we've been ships passing in the night lately. Work's been busy. I kept my voice neutral, sleepy, normal. I know, baby, mine too. She traced patterns on my chest with her fingertip. I've been thinking, though. Maybe we need to prioritize us more, you know? Make time for each other. The audacity of it almost made me laugh. Here she was, fresh from planning her next assignation with another man, talking about prioritizing our marriage. What did you have in mind? I don't know. Date nights, weekend getaways, maybe even… She paused. Charlotte next weekend. Big client thing. I'll probably have to stay over Saturday night. But after that, maybe we could plan something? Just us? Sure, whatever you need. You're the best, you know that? She kissed my chest. I don't deserve you. For once, she was telling the truth. She was asleep within minutes. Her breathing evened out, and her body went slack against mine. I stared at the ceiling for a long time. After I was sure she wouldn't wake, I carefully extricated myself from her embrace and padded to the living room. My laptop was on the coffee table. I logged into our joint credit card account and started scrolling. No charge for Lux Intimate. Whoever D was, he was paying. That made it worse somehow. Another man bankrolling my wife's seduction, dressing her up like a gift he was buying for himself. Her phone was on the nightstand, charging. I knew her passcode. She'd never changed it from our anniversary date, which now struck me as either lazy or cruel. Maybe both. The messages were clean. Too clean. No text from anyone suspicious. No late-night calls. No trail at all. That was the first red flag. Allison wasn't careful by nature. She left cabinet doors open, forgot to pay parking tickets, couldn't remember passwords to save her life. I'd always teased her about it, called her my beautiful disaster. But her phone was immaculate, organized, scrubbed. Someone had taught her. I noticed she had 2 email apps. Gmail, which we'd shared since we got married, and Proton Mail, which I'd never seen before. Encrypted. Secure. The kind of thing I recommended to clients who had something to hide. I tried to open it. Password protected. Not our anniversary, not her birthday, not any of the usual suspects. Whoever was helping her had taught her that much, at least. I didn't push further that night. I put her phone back exactly where it had been, screen down, charging cable looped the same way. Then I went to the kitchen, poured myself 2 fingers of bourbon, and sat in the dark. I wasn't angry. That surprised me. I expected rage, the kind of red-hot fury that makes men do stupid things. Instead, I felt something else. Clarity. Like the fog of the past few years had suddenly lifted and I could see the shape of things for the first time. All those late nights at the office, all those client dinners that ran long, all those moments when she seemed distracted, distant, somewhere else even when she was sitting right next to me. I'd blamed myself, thought I was working too hard, not being present enough, bought her flowers, planned surprise date nights, tried harder. And all the while, she'd been planning her exit. This wasn't a wound to nurse. It was a problem to solve. The next 2 weeks were an exercise in patience. I kissed her goodbye every morning, same as always. Made dinner 3 nights a week. Her favorite salmon with dill sauce, the rosemary chicken she always requested when she was too tired to think. I asked about her day, her clients, her sales numbers, laughed at her jokes, held her hand during movies. I was the perfect husband. Meanwhile, I was building a case. The GPS tracker was professional grade, the same model I'd recommended to a defense contractor client who suspected corporate espionage. Small enough to fit inside the wheel well of her Volvo, powerful enough to ping her location every 60 seconds, with battery life measured in months. I installed it on a Sunday morning while she slept off a girls' night that I now suspected involved exactly 0 girls. She'd come home at 2 in the morning, smelling like wine and perfume that wasn't hers. Sarah insisted on one more round, she'd explained, kicking off her heels. You know how she gets. I did know how Sarah got. I also knew that Sarah had posted pictures on Instagram from her couch that same night, binge-watching some show with her husband. I didn't mention it, just filed it away. The garage camera was easier. We already had a Ring system. I just added a secondary camera with a better angle on the packages. The footage automatically uploaded to a cloud server she didn't know existed. I set up alerts on my phone. Every time a package arrived. Every time her car left our neighborhood. Every time she deviated from her normal routes. I created spreadsheets tracking her movements, her excuses, her lies. I color-coded them by category, work, social, unexplained. The unexplained column grew longer every week. Within a week, I had a pattern. Thursdays. Allison left for yoga at 5:30 p.m. She'd kiss me on the cheek, grab her mat and her water bottle, and head out the door with promises to bring back takeout from that Thai place I liked. The GPS showed her driving downtown, not to the studio on Glenwood. She parked at a hotel, the Kimpton Cardinal, and stayed for exactly 2 hours before heading home. Every Thursday, same time, same place. The Thai food was always slightly cold when she got back. They were busy, she'd say. Had to wait forever. The consistency was almost insulting. Her weekend trips were worse. Every other week she had client meetings in Charlotte. I'd been accepting this at face value for over a year. Pharmaceutical sales meant travel, and Charlotte was part of her territory. I'd even felt guilty sometimes, kissing her goodbye on Friday afternoons, knowing she'd be working while I relaxed at home. Except the GPS showed she wasn't staying at any hotel. She was staying at a residence. A very nice residence in the Myers Park neighborhood, the kind of place with a circular driveway and a 3-car garage. Property records showed it belonged to a family trust, the Whitmore Family Trust. I wrote down the address, filed it away. The Lux Intimate subscription took longer to trace. I couldn't use our normal credit cards. She wasn't paying for it. So I called in a favor from Marcus Rios, a contact at a financial forensics firm. We'd worked together on an embezzlement case 2 years back, and he owed me one. "This personal?" he asked when I explained what I needed. "Does it matter?" "Nope, just curious." I heard him typing on the other end of the line. "Give me 48 hours. He called back in 36. The subscription's tied to a corporate card. Company name is Whitmore & Associates, LLC, commercial real estate investment firm based in Raleigh. The card belongs to a David Whitmore, senior partner. The name hit me like a punch to the chest. David Whitmore. I knew that name. He was married to Rebecca Whitmore. I'd met her twice at charity functions. Pleasant woman, blonde. Sat on the board of half the do-gooder organizations in Raleigh. More importantly, David Whitmore was a mid-level partner at the firm where my brother-in-law Grant worked. Grant Palmer was married to my sister Natalie. I sat with that information for a long time, turning it over in my mind like a puzzle piece that suddenly made everything else make sense. My wife wasn't just having an affair. She was having an affair with a man connected to my family, a man whose business partner sat across from me at Thanksgiving dinner, a man whose wife had complimented Allison's dress at the Raleigh Arts Council Gala 6 months ago. The intimacy of the betrayal was staggering. That night, Allison came home late from a client meeting. She was humming something, a song I didn't recognize, as she dropped her keys on the counter and kicked off her heels. "Good day?" I asked from the couch. "The best. Close the Henderson account. Boss is thrilled." She walked over and kissed the top of my head. "How was yours?" "Fine. Quiet. I'm going to shower and crash. Exhausted." I listened to the water running, imagined her washing away whatever evidence she thought might cling to her skin. When she came to bed, her hair was damp and she smelled like our soap, our shampoo, everything familiar and domestic and normal. "Love you," she mumbled into her pillow. "Love you too." I went to the gym at 5 a.m. the next morning, ran on the treadmill until my lungs burned and my legs felt like rubber. Then I showered, went to work, and smiled at everyone I passed. Phase 2 was about to begin. Tom Reeves had been FBI for 22 years before going private. Counterintelligence mostly, the kind of work that teaches you how people really hide things, not how they think they hide things. We'd worked together on a corporate espionage case 3 years back, some mid-level executive at a tech firm selling secrets to foreign competitors. Tom found the guy in 3 weeks, after the company's internal security had spent 6 months chasing ghosts. We met at a coffee shop in Durham, neutral territory, the kind of place where nobody looked twice at two middle-aged men having a quiet conversation. "David Whitmore," Tom said, turning the name over like he was tasting it. "Real estate guy. I know of him. Connected family. Old money, or at least the appearance of it." He stirred his coffee slowly. "What do you need?" "Everything. Surveillance on him for the next 2 weeks. Financial background, legal history, business dealings. I want to know what he eats for breakfast and what he dreams about at night." "And I'm guessing you want photos." "Photos would be helpful, yes. Of him and whoever he's meeting at that hotel." I nodded. Tom's eyebrows went up slightly. He was too professional to ask questions, but I could see him filing away the implications. "This personal?" "Very." "Your wife?" "Does it matter?" "Not to me." He drained his coffee. $4,000 for 2 weeks. Photos included. Background extra." "Done." We shook hands. I paid cash. And I waited. The report came on day 21. Tom wanted to meet in person. Said some things were better delivered face-to-face. "Your boy's been busy," he said, sliding a manila envelope across the table. "I've got photographs from 2 consecutive Thursdays. Clear shots, time-stamped, location verified. Him entering the Kimpton Cardinal at 5:47 p.m. Your wife's Volvo in the parking garage, plate number visible. The two of them leaving separately. Him first, then her, 15 minutes later. Classic affair protocol." "They teach that in cheater school?" Tom didn't smile. "You'd be surprised how predictable people get. They all think they're being clever, doing the separate departure thing, but they always use the same hotel, same room, same time. Makes my job easy." I opened the envelope and looked at the photos. There was Allison, walking through the hotel lobby in that blue dress I'd bought her for our anniversary. She was smiling, radiant, happy in a way I hadn't seen in years. Looking at those photos felt like being stabbed with an icicle. Not hot rage, something colder, sharper. "Same routine both weeks?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. "Like clockwork. He books the room under a corporate expense account, calls it client entertainment. Hotel staff know him by name. The concierge even called him Mr. Whitmore when he walked in." Tom shook his head. "Sloppy. These people are always sloppy. They think nobody's watching." "What about security cameras? Could he claim these are doctored? Already thought of that. I've got metadata, timestamps, and corroborating footage from a coffee shop across the street. Your wife bought a latte there both Thursdays at 5:42 p.m. Paid with her credit card, the one from your joint account. She was charging her pre-affair coffee to our marriage. Something about that detail made everything feel more real, more absurd. What else? That's where it gets interesting. He pulled out a second folder. Your boy's got problems beyond the affair. SEC's been sniffing around his firm for about 6 months. Something about a real estate development deal, possible securities fraud, moving investor money between projects, maybe skimming from escrow accounts. How solid? Solid enough that his partners are nervous. I've got a source who says there's been tension at the firm. Some of the junior partners are talking about cutting ties before things get worse. He paused. Your brother-in-law is one of those partners, Grant Palmer. I know. You know he might get splashed when this thing blows up? I'll handle Grant. Tom studied me for a moment. You're taking this pretty well. Most guys in your situation, they'd be throwing furniture by now. I'm not most guys. No, he said slowly. I don't suppose you are. The drive home that night was the first time I let myself feel anything. Not anger, not yet. Something colder. Something that had been building since I opened that matte black box in my kitchen. I'd given Allison 11 years. I'd given her my trust, my faith, my belief in a future together. And she'd been trading it away, piece by piece, for hotel rooms and lingerie and whatever empty promises David Whitmore had been whispering in her ear. Allison was on the couch when I walked in, watching some reality show about housewives behaving badly. The irony wasn't lost on me. Hey, babe, she said without looking up. There's leftover Thai in the fridge. Thanks, long day. Same, client dinner ran late. I grabbed a beer from the refrigerator and stood in the kitchen doorway watching her. She was beautiful in the lamplight, her legs tucked underneath her hair still damp from a shower. I wondered if she'd washed him off before coming home. I wondered if she thought about me at all when she was with him, or if I'd become nothing more than a prop in the life she was building without me. You okay? She asked, finally glancing my way. You seem distracted. Just tired. Think I'll turn in early. Okay, love you. Love you too. The words were ash in my mouth. Divorce law in North Carolina is surprisingly civilized, at least on paper. Equitable distribution. 1-year separation requirement. No fault grounds available, though fault-based grounds, like adultery, can still affect things like alimony. Lawrence Keating explained all of this in his Charlotte office, a sleek corner suite with a view of the skyline. I'd chosen him specifically because he was 3 hours from Raleigh. Different social circles, different networks. No chance of Allison finding out through the rumor mill. Let me make sure I understand the situation, Keating said, leaning back in his leather chair. He was mid-50s, silver-haired, with the kind of calm demeanor that suggested he'd seen every variation of marital disaster and stopped being surprised decades ago. Your wife has been conducting an affair for approximately 8 months. You have photographic documentation, GPS records, financial trails, and you believe she's been consulting with divorce attorneys in preparation for leaving you. That's correct. And your goal is to protect my assets, to ensure she doesn't profit from betraying me, and to make sure that when this ends, it ends on my terms. Keating nodded slowly, making notes on his legal pad. Your situation is actually stronger than most. You've got documentation, photos, financial records. In North Carolina, adultery can bar alimony claims entirely. That's significant, especially if she's been living a lifestyle that assumes she'll be getting support after the divorce. What about asset division? Equitable doesn't mean equal. If we can demonstrate that she's been diverting marital assets, hiding money, planning to leave, that works in your favor too. Courts don't look kindly on spouses who treat marriage like a long con. He paused, studying me. You're remarkably calm about all this, Mr. Wells. Most clients in your situation are more emotional. I spent 6 years in military intelligence. You learn to compartmentalize. Useful skill for divorce. Turns out it's useful for a lot of things. I told him about Proton Mail, about the GPS data, about the Thursday afternoons and the Charlotte weekends, about the Lux Intimate subscription tied to David Whitmore's corporate card. Has she consulted an attorney? Keating asked. I don't know yet. Find out and document everything. We want a complete picture before we file. The more we know, the less they can surprise us. I spent the next 3 weeks doing exactly that. The hidden account was almost too easy to find. Allison had never been good with money. She let me handle most of our finances, said numbers made her eyes glaze over. But someone had helped her open an account at a credit union in Charlotte. Marcus Rios found it within 48 hours. Balance, $47,000. She'd been moving money for over 2 years. Small amounts at first, 100 here, 200 there, skimmed from her expense reimbursements before they hit our joint account. Then larger transfers once she started traveling for work more frequently. She'd built an exit ramp while I was busy protecting corporate secrets and thinking we were happy. But the real gut punch came from her transaction history. Monthly payments to Benson and Associates, a Charlotte law firm. I looked them up. Family law specialists. High-asset divorces. Custody battles. The kind of attorneys you hire when you're planning to leave and want to make sure you get everything you're entitled to. My wife had been consulting divorce lawyers for at least a year. The affair wasn't impulsive. It wasn't about passion or loneliness or any of the comfortable excuses people use to explain betrayal. It was strategic. David Whitmore was her exit plan. Wealthy, connected, and apparently willing to blow up his own life to be with her. She wasn't just cheating. She was going to take half my assets and walk into a new life without looking back. Something shifted in me that night. The cold detachment I'd been feeling crystallized into something harder. Something with edges. This wasn't about saving my marriage anymore. This was about making sure she didn't profit from destroying it. The gala was Natalie's idea, though she didn't know she was helping me. The Raleigh Arts Council fundraiser, $500 a plate, rubber chicken and white wine, the usual parade of local money pretending to care about culture. Rebecca Whitmore was on the board. She'd be there. I spotted her near the silent auction tables, examining a watercolor landscape with the kind of focused attention that suggested she was avoiding someone. Her husband, probably. Up close, she was more striking than I remembered. Late 40s, elegant in a way that spoke of old money and good breeding. She looked tired, though. The kind of tired that settles into your bones. Beautiful piece, I said, stopping beside her. Though the artist's use of light seems a bit heavy-handed. She glanced at me, surprised. Then smiled. That's because it was painted by the chairwoman's nephew. We're all required to say nice things. I must have missed that memo. First time at one of these? No, but I usually spend the evening hiding by the bar. I extended my hand. Cameron Wells, Natalie Palmer's brother. Rebecca Whitmore. She shook my hand. Her grip was firm, confident. I've met your sister, lovely woman, very dedicated to the arts. That's Natalie, can't resist a cause. We stood in comfortable silence for a moment, both of us pretending to admire the nephew's watercolor. How's David? I asked, keeping my voice casual. I hear he's been traveling a lot lately, Charlotte mostly. Business must be booming. It was a test. A tiny needle slipped between the ribs of polite conversation. I watched her face carefully. The smile didn't waver, but something behind her eyes went very still. A flicker of something, recognition maybe, or fear. David is... David. Busy as always. You know how it is. I do. I let the silence stretch just long enough to be uncomfortable. Well, I won't keep you. Enjoy the gala, Mrs. Whitmore. Rebecca, please. She looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. And it was nice to meet you, Cameron. I walked away, feeling her gaze on my back. 3 days later, I sent her a package. No return address. Inside, photographs of David entering the Kimpton Cardinal. Photographs of Allison's Volvo in the parking garage. A printout of the Lux Intimate subscription tied to his corporate card. No note, no explanation, just evidence. The response came faster than I expected. A message to my work email, sent from an anonymous account. We should talk. RW. We met at a coffee shop in Durham. Same place I'd met Tom Reeves. Neutral ground. She was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth with a cup of tea she hadn't touched. She looked different than she had at the gala, less polished, more human. Her hands were clasped tight around the teacup, knuckles white. Thank you for meeting me, she said, as I slid into the booth across from her. I wasn't sure you'd come. I wasn't sure I would either. She studied me for a moment. You're Allison's husband. And you're David's wife. I was wondering when someone would tell me. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Everyone knows, don't they? Everyone except the spouse. We're always the last to know. I didn't know. Not until a few weeks ago. How did you find out? I told her about the subscription box, the note, the GPS tracker, and the Thursday afternoons. I told her about the photographs, the credit card trails, the Proton Mail account. She listened without interrupting, her expression growing colder with each detail. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. 8 months, she said finally. I thought maybe it was 6. I didn't realize it had been going on since January. She picked up her tea, looked at it, set it down again. January. That was when David started going to the gym. Said he wanted to get healthy. I thought maybe it was a New Year's resolution. You suspected? David's many things, but subtle isn't one of them. The gym. The new cologne. He'd worn the same cologne for 15 years and suddenly he switches? Working late 3 nights a week when he used to be home by 6? She shook her head. I started keeping records about a year ago. Screenshots. Credit card statements. Suspicious calendar entries. I wasn't sure what I was waiting for. Maybe proof. Maybe courage. Maybe someone else to confirm what I already knew. What kind of records? Rebecca looked at me for a long moment, assessing. Her eyes were sharp, intelligent. Whatever she saw must have satisfied her, because she reached into her purse and pulled out a flash drive. Everything. 3 years of documentation, financial records, travel logs, his email passwords. He uses the same one for everything, which tells you how stupid he is. She slid the drive across the table. David's been skimming from client escrow accounts. Not massive amounts, not enough to trigger audits, but enough over time. He's using the money to fund his lifestyle. The car he bought last year, the trips, the lingerie subscriptions, the SEC investigation. Her eyebrows rose. You know about that? I know a lot of things. So do I. She leaned forward. I had a forensic accountant look at everything last month. Quietly, discreetly. He said it was concerning. Said if the SEC got hold of this information, David would be looking at civil penalties at minimum, criminal charges at worst. Why didn't you confront David? Because confrontation gives him a chance to prepare, to spin, to hire lawyers and PR people and make me look like the crazy, jealous wife who's making wild accusations. Her jaw tightened. I've been married to him for 15 years. I know exactly how he operates. He'll charm his way out of anything if you give him the chance. The only way to beat David is to hit him so hard and so fast that he can't recover. So what are you proposing? I'm proposing that we don't just divorce them. I'm proposing that we destroy them. Together. The words hung in the air between us. I could have walked away. Told her I wasn't interested in revenge, that I just wanted a clean divorce and a fresh start. That would have been the healthy choice, the mature choice. But maturity is overrated when someone's trying to rob you blind. I'm listening, but I have conditions. Nothing illegal. Everything has to be deniable or legitimate. This is a controlled demolition, not a crime spree. I've got a career and a reputation. I'm not throwing either away. Rebecca smiled. It was the first genuine expression I'd seen from her. I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm not interested in going to prison. I'm interested in justice. Then I think we can work together. Over the next 6 weeks, Rebecca and I became something between allies and friends. We met weekly, different locations, never the same place twice, to compare notes and coordinate strategy. Our communications went through Signal, encrypted and untraceable. Paranoid, maybe. But paranoia serves you well when your spouse has been lying to you for years. She was impressive, I had to admit. 15 years of marriage to David had taught her exactly how he operated. She knew his business partners, his vulnerabilities, his habits. She knew which associates he trusted and which ones were looking for reasons to push him out. She'd copied files from his home office computer over the span of 3 years, building a digital archive of his indiscretions. He never changed his passwords, she said during one of our meetings, shaking her head. 20 years in business, handles other people's money, and his computer password is David1234. I wanted to divorce him for stupidity alone. I contributed what I had. The affair documentation, Allison's hidden assets, my understanding of digital forensics. Together, we assembled a picture more complete than either of us could have managed alone. The breakthrough came in week 4. Tom Reeves called me on a Tuesday afternoon, his voice carrying that particular tone that meant he'd found something interesting. You're not going to believe this. Try me. Your boy David has another woman. I actually laughed. Besides my wife? Besides your wife. Her name's Brittany Cole, 28 years old. Works as an administrative assistant at his firm. They've been meeting at a hotel in Durham, the Marriott, not the Kimpton. Tuesdays and Fridays. I sat back in my chair, processing. David Whitmore was running 3 women simultaneously. His wife, my wife, and a 20-something assistant who probably thought she was special. You're sure about this? I've got photos, same quality as the others. Want them? Send everything. I showed Rebecca at our next meeting. She looked at the photographs of David with Brittany, younger, blonder, more obviously dazzled, and her expression didn't change. Of course, she said quietly. Of course there's another one. Why would I expect anything else? You're handling this well. I've had 15 years to stop being surprised by David. She set down the photos. Does your wife know about this other woman? Not as far as I can tell. She thinks she's the one he's leaving me for. Seems that way? Rebecca was quiet for a moment. Don't tell her. Let her believe the fantasy. She'll find out soon enough. I'd been thinking the same thing. Allison believed she was David's great love, the woman who'd finally given him what his cold, distant wife never could. She had no idea she was just one option in a rotation. When she found out, the betrayal would be double. Not just losing me, but losing the future she thought she was building with him. Let her believe the fantasy. It would make the eventual collapse that much more devastating. Instead of telling Allison, I contacted Brittany. The approach was delicate. I sent her an email from an anonymous account, screenshots of David's text messages to Allison, the ones I'd managed to extract through some creative social engineering of the Proton Mail backup. Nothing identifying me, just evidence that the man she was sleeping with was also sleeping with someone else. She responded within 12 hours. Furious. Humiliated. and very, very willing to talk. We met at a coffee shop in Cary. She was younger than I expected, pretty in a girl next door way that probably appealed to David's midlife crisis sensibilities. She'd been crying. Her eyes were red and her makeup was smudged, but there was steel underneath the tears. "I'm such an idiot," she said, stirring her latte without drinking it. "He told me his marriage was over, that they were just staying together for the kids until they finished school. I believed him. I believed every word. They always have a story. He said I was different, special, that he'd never felt this way about anyone." She laughed bitterly. "God, how many women has he said that to?" "At least 2 that I know of. Probably more." "Who are you?" She looked up at me, mascara smudged under her eyes. "Why are you telling me this?" "I'm someone with an interest in seeing David Whitmore held accountable for his choices, and I think you can help with that." "How?" "You have access to his calendar, his work files, his email probably, at least the work account. I need documentation, everything you can get me about his meetings, his travel, his schedule for the past year. In exchange, I'll make sure you have a clean exit. New job at a competitor. Letter of recommendation from someone who matters. Nothing that ties back to any of this." Brittany was quiet for a long moment. I could see her weighing the options, loyalty to a man who'd been playing her versus an opportunity to get out clean. "There's something else you should know," she said finally. "I've heard things. In the office. Some of the partners are worried about a financial audit. They think David's been doing something with the escrow accounts. Can you get me documentation?" "I can try. There's a file on his computer. He asked me to organize it last month. Financial records, transaction logs. He said it was for tax purposes, but some of the numbers didn't add up." "Get me that file," she nodded slowly. "And you'll make sure I land somewhere good?" "I'll make sure you land somewhere better." By early October, all the pieces were in place. I had photographs from Tom Reeves documenting the affair. GPS records showing every Thursday at the Kimpton Cardinal, every weekend in Charlotte. The lingerie subscription tied to David's corporate card. His calendar, courtesy of Brittany, showing every meeting at the hotel, cross-referenced with Allison's schedule. Rebecca's files documenting his financial misconduct. Brittany's records of his parallel affair. The hidden account Allison had been feeding for 2 years. Her consultations with Benson and Associates, the divorce attorneys she thought I didn't know about. Lawrence Keating reviewed everything and pronounced it bulletproof. "I've been doing this for 20 years, he said, flipping through the documentation. "This is one of the most complete evidentiary packages I've ever seen. When do you want to pull the trigger?" "October 15th, a Thursday." "Symbolic?" "Practical. It's their day. They'll be together when it all falls apart." The preparations were meticulous. I transferred my unvested stock options to a trust, legal, documented, protected. Closed the joint credit accounts, which I was authorized to do as a primary account holder. Moved important documents to a safe deposit box at a bank Allison didn't know existed. 1 week before the execution date, I sat across from Allison at dinner, watching her eat the salmon I'd prepared, her favorite, and talk about her upcoming Charlotte trip. "It's a big account," she said. "Could be a promotion if I close it. I might have to stay through Sunday just to make sure everything's locked down." "Whatever you need," I said. "Your career's important." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You're so supportive. I don't know what I'd do without you." "You'll never have to find out." She smiled at me, that radiant, beautiful smile, and I smiled back. 2 days before the execution date, she suggested we take a vacation together. "Maybe the Caribbean?" she said over breakfast. "We haven't traveled just the 2 of us in years. Could be romantic." I looked at her across the table, beautiful, lying, convinced she was getting away with everything, and felt nothing but a vast, cold emptiness. "That sounds nice," I said. Let's talk about it after your Charlotte trip. She smiled. Perfect. October 15th was a Thursday. Crisp autumn weather, leaves just starting to turn. The kind of day that makes you believe in new beginnings. I barely slept the night before. Not from nerves, from anticipation. Like the night before a mission when you've done all the planning, checked all the equipment, and there's nothing left but to execute. Allison slept soundly beside me, dreaming whatever dreams cheating wives dream about. I lay there in the dark, listening to her breathe, and thought about everything we'd built together. 11 years, a house, a life. All of it built on a foundation I thought was solid, and all of it about to come crashing down. I kissed her goodbye at 7:30 a.m. She was running late for a meeting, distracted, barely present. "Hey, slow down," I said, catching her arm as she rushed past. "You forgot something." She turned, confused. "What?" I kissed her again. Longer this time. "That." She laughed, the laugh I'd fallen in love with, back when it was real. "You're sweet. I'll see you tonight." "Have a good day at yoga tonight." "Thanks, babe. Don't wait up. I might grab dinner with the girls after." "Sure. Love you." "Love you too." I watched her drive away, her Volvo disappearing around the corner like it had 1,000 times before. Except this time, I knew exactly where she was going, and I knew exactly what was waiting for her there. I got in my car and headed to Lawrence Keating's office. The divorce petition was filed at 9:47 a.m. I signed it at Keating's desk, in his corner office with the view of Charlotte's skyline, and felt absolutely nothing. "You're sure about this?" Keating asked. "Once we file, there's no taking it back." "I'm sure. Legal service will be delivered to her by noon. The sheriff's deputy will find her at her office." "No." I'd thought about this. "I want her to receive it somewhere else. Can we delay service until mid-afternoon? Say 2:30? Keating raised an eyebrow. "That's unusual. Most clients want the papers served as quickly as possible." "She has an appointment at 2 now p.m. at a hotel downtown. I want her to receive the papers there." Understanding dawned on his face. "Ah. Can you arrange it?" "I can arrange it." At 11:30 a.m., Rebecca executed her part of the plan. She texted me from the parking lot of David's office. "Going in now. Wish me luck." I texted back, "You don't need luck. You've got evidence." She walked into the building with a sheriff's deputy and a forensic accountant, a woman named Patricia Huang, who'd spent 20 years untangling corporate fraud before going private. Rebecca had hired her 3 weeks ago, and Patricia had been meticulous. Every transaction documented, every discrepancy flagged, every lie David had told laid out in black and white. Rebecca presented David's partners with the evidence, the escrow skimming, the expense account fraud, the misuse of corporate funds for what the documents called inappropriate personal expenditures, a polite way of saying hotel rooms and lingerie for his mistress. Grant, my brother-in-law, called me 20 minutes later. His voice was shaking. "Cam, what the hell is going on? There's a forensic accountant in David's office, and Rebecca's serving papers, and everyone's screaming at each other." "I know, Grant. I know everything." Silence on the line. I could hear people shouting in the background, David's voice raised and panicked. "You knew? About David?" "I've known for weeks. David's been having an affair, Grant, with Allison." More silence. Then, Jesus Christ. "I'm sorry you're caught in the middle of this. I tried to keep you out of it, but there was no clean way. No, Allison and David?" I heard him take a breath, trying to process. "How long?" 8 months, maybe longer." "And Rebecca, she knew too?" "She's been building a case for years. Financial misconduct, affair documentation, everything. Today's just the day we pulled the trigger." "We? You've been working with Rebecca?" "I'll explain tonight. Right now, I need you to trust me." What's happening to David is deserved, and none of it is going to splash on you. Rebecca and I made sure the forensic report separates his misconduct from the rest of the firm's operations. You're clean. Grant was quiet for a long moment. Okay, okay. I trust you, Cam. But you owe me a very long conversation. Tonight, I promise. Now go protect your firm. He hung up. I checked my watch. 1:47 p.m. Allison was probably already driving downtown, already thinking about the afternoon ahead, already planning what she'd wear for David, what she'd say, what they'd do in room 412 of the Kimpton Cardinal. She had no idea that by 3 p.m. her entire world would be in ashes. By noon, David Whitmore's professional life was in flames. At 2 p.m., Allison arrived at the Kimpton Cardinal. I know because I was watching the GPS tracker. She parked in the garage, took the elevator to the 4th floor, and walked into room 412, their room, the one David had been booking every Thursday for 8 months. I imagined her there, checking herself in the mirror, adjusting her hair, putting on whatever lingerie Dee had picked out for her this week, thinking about the life she was building with him, the future they'd planned, the escape she'd been engineering for years. At 2:15 p.m., I sent her a text from my personal phone. I know, I've always known. Check your email. I kept my phone in my hand, watching the screen. I could see the timestamp when she read the message. 2:16 p.m. I imagined her face, the confusion first, then the dawning horror as the words sank in. She opened the email. I know because my attorney had set up red receipts. At 2:17 p.m., Allison Wells opened an email from Lawrence Keating, attorney at law, containing the divorce petition, the timeline, the photographs, and the lingerie subscription records. At 2:18 p.m., she started calling. My phone rang. I watched her name flash on the screen. Allison, with the little heart emoji she'd added years ago, and let it go to voicemail. At 2:19 p.m., she called again. I let it ring. At 2:20 p.m., she called a third time. This time, I sent a text. Speak to your attorney. I can only imagine what was happening in that hotel room. David's phone would have been ringing too by then. Grant calling, his other partners calling, Rebecca calling to inform him she'd filed for divorce and changed the locks on their house. The fantasy they'd built together was collapsing in real time, and there was nothing either of them could do to stop it. At 2:31 p.m., David's phone started ringing too. Grant calling to tell him he was finished at the firm. Rebecca calling to inform him she'd filed for divorce and changed the locks. His other partners calling to discuss his immediate departure from the company. The SEC investigation that was about to accelerate now that his partners were cooperating. Their fantasy collapsed in real time. Allison tried one more thing. At 2:45 p.m., she called Benson and Associates, the divorce attorneys she'd been secretly consulting for a year, the ones she'd paid $12,000 to over the past 18 months, the ones she thought would represent her when she finally left me. They informed her they couldn't take her case. Conflict of interest. They'd been retained 3 weeks earlier by a Mr. Cameron Wells for a minor consultation. A simple question about asset protection, nothing major, $500 for 30 minutes of their time. But it was enough. Enough to create the conflict. Enough to leave her without representation at the moment she needed it most. I'm not proud of that one. It was petty, vindictive. The kind of move that shows exactly how far you've fallen from the person you thought you were. But I'd spent 3 months watching my marriage disintegrate in retrospect, realizing that every tender moment, every I love you, every night she'd spent in our bed had been a performance. She'd earned some pettiness. The fallout was swift and brutal. Allison came home that evening to find the locks changed. Her belongings were boxed neatly in the garage. I'd hired professionals to pack everything, made sure nothing was damaged or missing. In North Carolina, you can change the locks during divorce proceedings when there's documented adultery. I'd followed every protocol. She stood in the driveway for 20 minutes, calling my phone, calling her sister, calling anyone who might help. I watched through the upstairs window. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vindicated. I just felt tired. Eventually, she left. She moved in with her sister Jessica into a cramped guest room that smelled like her niece's hamster. The Volvo sat in Jessica's driveway like a monument to poor choices. David's collapse was even more spectacular. His partners forced him into a buyout at 30 cents on the dollar. Take it, or we report the escrow fraud to the SEC ourselves. His reputation in Raleigh business circles was destroyed overnight. Rebecca's divorce filing was impeccable. Her documentation was thorough. And Brittany Cole's statement about David's workplace affair added a sexual harassment dimension that made his professional rehabilitation basically impossible. Brittany landed on her feet. I made good on my promise, helped her get a position at a competing firm in Charlotte, far from the wreckage. She sent me a thank you note 3 months later. Said it was the best thing that ever happened to her. The legal proceedings took 6 months. Lawrence Keating presented our evidence methodically, devastatingly. The photographs, the GPS data, the hidden account, the secret divorce consultations. The court-appointed forensic accountant confirmed that Allison had diverted $47,000 from our marital estate over 2 years. Her attorney, a last-minute hire who specialized in DUIs, not high-asset divorces, pushed for mediation. I refused. Mr. Wells, the judge said during one hearing, you understand that pursuing this to trial will be expensive and time-consuming? I understand, Your Honor, but some things are more important than convenience. In the end, Allison's adultery barred her from alimony entirely. The hidden assets triggered additional penalties. She walked away with 30% of our marital estate instead of the 50% she'd expected, and no wealthy boyfriend to cushion the fall. Because David Whitmore wasn't rescuing anyone. He was too busy trying to save himself. Allison's professional destruction was, in some ways, worse than her personal one. Her pharmaceutical company had a morality clause, loosely enforced, mostly ignored, but suddenly very relevant when a local society blog ran a story about the dueling divorces of Raleigh's elite. The headline was tacky. The details were accurate. Her company offered a severance package in exchange for her resignation. She took it. She had no leverage. Her LinkedIn went dark. Her professional network evaporated. The woman who'd been building an exit ramp for 2 years found herself standing in rubble with nowhere to go. I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel some satisfaction in that. But it was hollow. Like winning a game that had stopped mattering somewhere along the way. Rebecca thrived. She'd always been the stronger one, I think. 15 years of living with David had taught her resilience in ways I was only beginning to understand. She kept the house, got primary custody of the kids, built a new life on the foundation of everything she'd survived. We stayed in touch. Not romantic, nothing like that. Just two people who'd been through the same war and come out the other side. Do you ever regret it? She asked me once, over coffee in Durham. The way we did it? I thought about it. Really thought about it. I regret trusting someone who didn't deserve it, I said finally. I regret the years I spent not seeing what was right in front of me. But protecting myself? No, I don't regret that. Neither do I. A year after the divorce was finalized, I got an email from Allison. It was long, emotional, full of explanations and justifications and apologies that somehow managed to sound like accusations. She was lost. She'd made a mistake. She wanted to know if there was any possibility of reconciliation. I never stopped loving you, she wrote. David was a fantasy. You were real. I was confused and scared, and I made terrible choices. But I know now what I threw away. Can we please just talk? I read it once, then I deleted it. I didn't respond. There was nothing to say. Some people believe in redemption. Second chances. The healing power of forgiveness. Maybe they're right. Maybe I should have engaged with her pain, acknowledged her humanity, offered some kind of closure that would let us both move on. But here's what I know. She wasn't sorry she'd done it. She was sorry she'd gotten caught. She wasn't mourning our marriage. She was mourning the life she'd planned to build on its wreckage. And I wasn't interested in being a stepping stone to her healing journey. The house is quiet now. Duke, my German shepherd, keeps me company. We take long walks through the nature preserve near my neighborhood, and I've picked up woodworking as a hobby. Built a bookshelf last month. Oak and walnut, hand-joined, 3 coats of tung oil. It's not perfect, but it's mine. My company promoted me 6 months after the divorce. Director of security, corner office, nice bump in salary. I work less now, which is ironic. All those years Allison complained about my hours, and it turns out I was just hiding from a marriage that was already dead. Natalie invites me to Sunday dinner every week. Her kids are loud and messy and exhausting, and Grant still brings up the David situation occasionally, shaking his head at how close he came to getting dragged down with the wreckage. But it's family. It's chaos. It's home. "You seem good," Natalie said last week, catching me in the kitchen while I was refilling my wine. Like actually good, not just pretending good. I am good. Anyone new? I thought about it. There'd been a few dates, nothing serious. A woman from my gym who laughed at my jokes. A colleague's friend who asked for my number at a party. I wasn't ready for anything real, but I wasn't closed off either. "Maybe," I said. "Eventually." Natalie hugged me. "I'm proud of you for how you handled everything." "I just did what needed to be done." "I know. That's why I'm proud." I drove home that night with the windows down. Autumn air sharp and clean. The house was dark when I pulled into the driveway. Duke met me at the door, tail wagging, ready for his evening walk. We walked through the woods as the sun set, the sky turning orange and pink through the bare branches. I thought about Allison, about what we'd had once, about what she'd thrown away. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't broken. I was just done. And honestly, that felt like enough. Duke bounded ahead, chasing squirrels he'd never catch. I followed behind, hands in my pockets, breathing deep. The phone buzzed in my pocket. Text from Natalie, "Dinner Sunday? We miss you." I smiled. Typed back, "I'll bring the wine." Some things end, some things begin. The trick is knowing which is which. I whistled for Duke, and we headed home.